Uh, Abstract brainwaves, game genie in the beanie. We ain't on the same stage, leveled up.
3, 2, 1. That was the other way around, right? Whip. Alright, other yellow hat guy here, back with another video. And yes, it is time. It is time to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. You know, we've had these movies, Homecoming, Far From Home, to No Way Home. Why is this one No Way Home? Home is the theme here, but let's just jump right into it, okay? I saw the movie last night. Last night for me, dating this video, is Thursday. So today being Friday, I took the opportunity to say, you know what, now that I've seen the movie, the hype was built up, okay? The hype was there. You could argue it's overhyped. I really don't care. You just have to see the movie for yourself to understand. The good thing was, after the movie, I had a conversation with some other individuals who saw the movie, one of which was dressed up like Doctor Strange. Hopefully those photos are in here. Maybe they aren't. But they might be on my social media. Check me out, Other Yellow Hat Guy / or Facebook.com/Other Yellow Hat Guy, all together. Okay, shameless promotion out of the way. I was like, let me not go into my feelings because I grew up loving Spider-Man. I was one of the kids who always enjoyed the idea of a hero who had struggles just like everybody else. Not necessarily me, but struggles, learning how to deal with other people who may or may not become friends, platonic or romantic, Didn't have the best family life growing up. Didn't have brothers or sisters. It was just him, just this kid he didn't have iPads and, all kinds of video games. He was just, on his own, self-motivated, at least trying to be. But he had a great aunt and uncle, not great as in they were that old, but, they were great as in good people who, kept him up. And that's important because not everybody comes from a two-family home, or, even if both parents are there, they may not be as attentive as they need to, and yada yada and so on. I say that to compare that to a hero like Superman. I know y'all don't like me talking about Superman on this channel. Some of the older videos, if you're still following me from way back then, I don't care for Superman. But this video isn't about Superman, but it's just to put it in perspective of why Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is such a great character. It's because you had a hero like Superman who is trying to be us. He's trying to be human, fit in our world, when he's got powers of a god. Whereas you've got Peter Parker, who is in our world, still socially awkward and everything, and trying to be the hero, trying to aspire to be something more, trying to grow. And that carries more weight, that carries more empathy, that carries more character than the opposite. So, and whenever I bring up Spider-Man, I'm going to mention that because I feel like the older you get and you're trying to grow, if you're trying to be on a path of, progress and improvement, you probably identify more with a Spider-Man than a Superman. The thing is with Peter, he's always making mistakes, and some people don't understand that. They want somebody who's going to always be clutch and always be perfect, but that's not reality, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, you can go on and on. Those guys have lost games. Their record isn't 100, and they're not upheld to a writer who's like, this is what's happening here and this is how it's going to play out. They've got to go and earn it. And although Spider-Man is upheld to a writer, they put themselves in it, and it's a lot more easier to relate to, in my opinion. So when we get to this movie here, you'll see Peter struggling again. The last movie left you with the cliffhanger of, oh my gosh, my secret identity is revealed to the world. Not only is Mr. Stark not here to help me, but people think I'm a murderer, a menace now. And Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons reprised that role perfectly, and he was this pseudo Alex Jones type of character who he's now on the blogs and social media, more modern day because people really don't read newspapers like that anymore. But we are out here on the internet getting our news. He was this TMZ-like guy going around stalking Spider-Man. So what I loved about this movie was darn near everything. I can't think of things that I didn't like. The plot was just, how can he undo this? and it harkens back to Civil War, the Civil War storyline where they took sides. Your Team Cap and Team Iron Man. Spider-Man initially took Iron Man's side, feeling like, hey, this is the right thing to do. We need to own up to, what we are doing. It's the responsible thing to do. And Cap was like, hey, look, this is our private lives. We're sacrificing ourselves. We don't need to, get involved on a government level. We should work for a government directly like that, even though Cap is essentially a government agent, right? So, although he's Captain America, does that mean he wouldn't do what's right all over the world? And he clearly said, no, it's bigger than that. The American dream was so that everybody could partake, no matter where you are, you could have these same freedoms and values. We want to be an example, not, whatever. But so this borrows from that in the sense that Peter's identity was out revealed to everybody, and he wants to undo that some way, somehow. And that brought in the One More Day storyline, where he tried to get with Strange to do this exact same thing that's going on in this movie. So, yeah, they've got a deal going around where Marvel gets to borrow Spider-Man for a movie, and in turn Sony gets to borrow one of Marvel's characters for one of their movies. And it just made sense that Doctor Strange, now that Iron Man is out of the MCU, or at least the Robert Downey Jr. Version of him is gone for right now. I say that to say there could be variants, right? Maybe Robert comes back and does some stuff. You just never know. But he's out of the picture, so the next hottest commodity is right here, in my opinion. And I'm not going to tell everything detail for detail, but because I'd be here for at least an hour. The runtime here is about 2.5 hours, maybe 2:45. I can't remember, but it's up there. And the good thing was the pacing was so on point you don't feel it. So he's trying to get into college with his friends, but everybody knows who he is. They're following him. They're blaming him for this murder. He has no privacy. Eventually, he runs to his aunt, who, so I didn't remember this, but she was dating Happy Hogan. So Jon Favreau is dating Marissa Tomei. Isn't he a lucky guy? He goes from Friends dating Courtney Cox to Marissa Tomei here. Wrote Elf, then is doing Star Wars, but I digress. Kudos to Favreau. So they break up, and he's depressed and this and that. Meanwhile, you've got Zendaya, who's MJ, not Mary Jane, her own character, along with Peter Parker, who they couldn't be happier. Even though things are crazy, she still stayed by her man. That's what I'm talking about. She didn't say, this is too much for me, I got to get out of here. She was like, nah, that's whatever. Forget these guys. I love you. So we're going to rock this out, because where were these people at when nobody knew who you were or who we were or cared? So I respected that. What I really loved about this was Zendaya, her character, she got to put part of her own personality, it feels like, into this. The sassiness, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but just her sarcasm, just all of that was on full display here, and it made for a better character, since you weren't trying to be go get him, tiger, and I like that part about Mary Jane too, but that's Mary Jane. That Zendaya, I don't see her pulling that off, in my opinion. So, I liked her better than I did Kirsten Dunst and, whoever the other girl was. I don't even remember who was Gwen Stacy in the other trilogy. She was aces in that. Ned, that character was aces. Ned is actually Ned Leeds. I don't know if his name is revealed in the other movies, maybe so, but that character by name is the Hobgoblin and the 616, MCU, or not MCU, but the actual Marvel comic universe. So in the cinematic universe, we're like, is there a variant Ned who's evil and going to be the Hobgoblin? We're waiting on that. They did not reveal that in the movie, but there was some foreshadowing there, when it comes to evil best friends and people turning their backs on you. It was fun there. So now getting to what you actually came here to see 10 minutes in the video, which is this. What do they actually do? See, the trailer, it points at, people trying to kill people who were killed by Spider-Man coming to get him. It's not what's happening. It's people who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So that's a whole different grouping there, because there's a lot of people who he may have killed or defeated or whatever, but they don't know who he is. Imagine if everybody who interacted with Spider-Man came around, because then the plot hole would be if someone, Sandman wasn't killed by Spider-Man, but yet we knew Sandman was in here if you've been looking at the trailers. I myself knew the spoilers from about a year ago of this movie, and if you were aware of these, all of them were true, which was awesome. Yes, Matt Murdock was in the movie as his lawyer. Charlie Cox is Daredevil again. Kevin Feige himself came out and told you this 2 or 3 days ago before the movie dropped. Why? Because, well, maybe you should watch Hawkeye before watching the rest of this. That said, I was excited. I was clapping. I was elated to see that they got Charlie Cox in there. Maybe they did some, reshoots, or he came in there last minute and they did all that. Who really knows? But that was awesome. You go from that to, Peter realizing that he can't have everything, even though he wants it that way. He still wants his friends to have their life, and they're not responsible for the stuff that he did, the choices he made. Sure, they helped out, but they weren't out here shooting the webs and everything. He realized the one person he could talk to was Strange, not realizing maybe he could have just talked to, the dean at MIT, which is where they were all trying to get into, but all got rejected because of, the current controversy with Spider-Man. So Strange helps him out. And there's a comic or a series called Happy Birthday with Spider-Man where he's trying to talk to Strange while Strange is trying to focus on a spell, because Peter talks a whole lot. I think that's maybe where I get it from. He talks so much that he messes up the spell, and this same thing pretty much happens here. And instead of Strange, getting it to where everyone forgets who Spider-Man is except for his, friends and people he wants to know, it somehow pulls in everyone who knows who a Spider-Man is to this one location, which is, where we are, right? The Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Assuming I'm canon in that universe and that you're canon and everyone's canon, right? So that meant that the Sinister 5 will show up. Yeah, not 6, 5. Were the 6 villains in this movie? You decide. Why? Well, we saw the Green Goblin. We saw Dr. Octavius. All right? We saw Electro. We saw Sandman. And then we lastly saw the Lizard. That's just 5. There wasn't a 6. There was no Sinister 6 here, which is kind of what they were going for. But maybe that would have just been too much. Or maybe they're saving that for, a Sony movie. Maybe that's what they're saving that for. Like a team up between, I don't know. I don't see how they could make that any more impactful than they did here. You could say, yeah, it's going to be Spider-Man going against all of them by himself or a team of people, but this was as close as we've gotten right here. Because all of them are pulled in one location. Strange says, look, since the spell is messed up, I'm going to need you to fix this mess. He uses a different 4-letter word that I used. But Peter's like, hey, I need help, man. So he gets Ned and he gets MJ to come help him out. And their job is to, hey, help me track these strange, beings. And we can use Strange's, his base and, trap them there. And here's the conflict. One of them, Norman Osborn, he sees the Spider-Man logo and he's like, let's go here. Maybe Spider-Man can help me. And he goes to this, the Feast Center, which is where Aunt May volunteers at and Peter works at. And she's like, no, your responsibility is to help people if you can, even if, you don't necessarily have any business. You should help people whenever you can. That's what makes it worth it, even if it costs you more. Spider-Man has that Catholic guilt where he mows your lawn 10 times, but the 11th time he doesn't mow it, somebody gets killed and suddenly he feels responsible for it. And that, you could argue that's in a lot of people. I feel that way, just in my Pokemon group, I feel like, hey, I'm responsible for some people not getting stuff done and this, that, and a third. But it's, you can feel responsible, but you can't let mishaps, you can't let that, overtake you. You can't give in to anger or rage or disappointment. You just have to move on. You have to press on. And that was the lesson here that Peter needed and he wasn't going to get because there's no Uncle Ben in this movie. And, well, his aunt sadly succumbed to trusting Norman. Norman has this psychosis, and the Green Goblin is not just how he is on the outward, it's really in him. It's his ego on full blast, and he realizes that he doesn't need to be rehabilitated. None of them wanted to be fixed, but they end up fixing Doc Ock, like legit. Like he had an actual chip that he designed to control these arms that had malfunction, and they fixed that. So that gave them all hope, because he could have just been like, hey, look, it's somebody else's problem. We're sending y'all back. Which is what Strange, was like, hey, that's what we need to do. And we weren't trying to do all this other stuff. We were just trying to make it so people don't remember who you are, not deal with other universal problems. But with great power, and, that's the lesson that he had to learn, was to be responsible, to kind of grow up some. And no better way to do that than enter Andrew Garfield, enter Tobey Maguire. And they stole the show, man. Toby was like some kind of angel on set, man. It was great to see him again. They had a joke ribbing him, saying he looked like a youth pastor because he was more... Here's what I'm going to say here, and this may not be an exclusive thought. I know there's some other people who have this same thought. Here's how I truly feel. Tobey Maguire, the best part about him was he had that awkward, I'm not even talking about the dancing and everything in Spider-Man 3. He had that awkward aloofness that you'd be like, I could see him getting bullied in school. He's Peter Parker, hands down. The best Spider-Man, but he was the best Peter Parker. You go to Andrew Garfield, not the best Peter Parker. I'm sorry. He was too cool for school. Jamie Foxx even made this quip, and I don't know if that was improv or what, but he said, you're from Queens, you were cool, had the look or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I thought you were black. And what it says to me is, you thought he was cool? I didn't think that Andrew Garfield was a nerd. I didn't think he was bullied. He had he had the freshest shoes to go along with his costume. He had the best. He was as sarcastic and funny as Spider-Man as he was as Peter Parker. So it felt a little off here. It was just like, yeah, this dude could be riding a hoverboard or driving a Bentley, and I'm supposed to relate to that. Not that I could shoot webs, and design hundreds of gadgets and stuff, but no. As a person, his strength was in the Spider-Man costume. And so with Tom Holland, you have the best of both. He had the look of Peter Parker, the mannerisms, but he was cool in the suit as well. So... it was great to see all three of them there. They did the meme where they were all pointing at each other, that people have remixed thousands of times by now on the internet. And he's like, look, I can need you guys' help. And they're all aware of this breach in their different universes. And, the Marvel universe, time travel works different. It works on space-time, which is still real in my opinion, where, the late, great Stephen Hawking talk about space-time. So check out A Brief History of Time if you want to get more into physics and layman terms of how all that works. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but it's not like Back to the Future is my point. Back to the Future is you go and change something, it changes your future, meaning I go back in time and stop my mom from getting with my dad, I'm no longer here. Marvel is like, no, you just created another branch. So that still happened, but there's another timeline now, a parallel universe, if you will, where I'm not me, or I'm not there, or something different happens, and there's just this web that just keeps going. So that seems interesting to me. You have people who have lost people to tragic incidences, and maybe they're somewhere else. Maybe in another timeline they still exist, and who knows? Maybe you leave this plane and go into another timeline. I don't know. I'm not trying to get existential here, but that's what I love about Marvel. They're not afraid to except when it comes to Mephisto, who it seems like Doctor Strange served the role of, not only fixing things here, because he couldn't do it in the One More Day storyline, which is why Peter went to Mephisto in the first place. Only later on to find out that Strange was able to do something for him. Go figure, though. But that was one of the things people were rumoring. The rumors were, hey, maybe that's not really Strange. Maybe it's Mephisto. Why would Strange succumb to doing something like that? Great for Peter. But then when you actually see the movie, it's like, oh, I can't just undo a whole bunch of stuff. But that simple thing you asked, which make people forget that you're Spider-Man, I actually can do that. So, yeah, that was the real Strange as far as I know here. But stay tuned to the last credit. Wait, there's 2 credits. There's a mid one that you got to watch, which I won't spoil. And then there's a second one, which I also won't spoil. But when it comes to Doctor Strange and his future, you need to watch that second one, okay? So, I felt like this could be a Christmas movie simply because, there was, although it's in the summertime, there's different stuff going on. They were aware that this movie was coming out in the Christmas time. So there was things there that was like, hey, I would rewatch this movie again, hands down, and I would rewatch it Christmas time. It really, there's no time to not watch this movie, in my opinion. They've got nice little references to different things, references to Hawkeye, references to Captain America, just... I don't want to be cliche and say it was a love letter to Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, all the way down to Brian Michael Bendis, but I mean, it was, man. The reason why I waited a whole day to review this was I needed one more day. See what I did there? Is because I don't want to just off of hype say, 10 out of 10, being my nostalgia, 10 out of 10, but I really can't find enough things wrong with it to not give it a 10. I mean, I was leaning a strong 9, trying to tell myself, no, it can't be a perfect movie. There were some things in there. Peter outsmarting Strange in a fight. Some people brought that to my attention. I was like, no, but any given Sunday, somebody can get beat. I mean, I've beaten a Russian chess master, and that doesn't mean I'm better than him at chess. Just any given Sunday, somebody can outsmart you. You're not paying attention. We're not perfect. And when you're not, that's when Peter is his best and finding ways to get to you. You might beat Peter 8 times out of 10, but he's going to figure out those 2 times, and those 2 times are when it's going to count. But that said, I love this movie. All the Peters team up to try to cure or fix all the remaining 5 of these, villains from their past movies. They succeed at that, of course. And what happens here is, Strange lets Peter know at the end of it all, he can't contain the multiverse, happening. The spell that he cast was to, to keep everything as it was so that, this whole multiverse thing doesn't happen. And the responsible thing he chose to do was say, hey, make it so people don't even know Peter Parker. And that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. It's just that they don't even know him. They don't remember him. There's nothing about Peter Parker. They remember Spider-Man, but they don't remember him at all. So there's still remnants of Spider-Man, but nobody knows him. So he goes on the rest of his days in this new life. There's a scene where he sees, MJ and Ned, and they actually get into MIT, and they're excited about that, but they don't remember him. And he made a promise to tell them who he is, but he doesn't do it. He realizes, I guess, that they were better off without knowing who he was, because he wasn't going to stop being Spider-Man. He still, he had the old classic suit, and it looks like a soft reboot to the series. I am here for it. I loved it. I can't wait to see this movie again. And again, 10 out of 10. If you disagree or agree, feel free to leave me messages in the comments, and we can talk about it. But let's not spoil this movie. I realized I saw it early because I didn't want to be spoiled. In a sense, I was spoiled, as I was spoiled the Doctor Strange movie coming out next year. But I'm still excited, nonetheless, to see everything play out as it's supposed to. This is a beautiful thing here where, it's not often where you have a franchise that for decades has been popular on pen and paper, and the CGI, the technology, the actors and actresses are all there to where they can at least make this look as close as it can to these stories that we all grew up knowing and loving. And maybe if you don't read comics anymore, this is your way in to go back and, you know, watch some of these movies. If not, go back and find some of these comic storylines and enjoy those. So that said, I've talked a fourth of the movie. That length, you know, summarize the whole movie in 25 minutes. So should be 2 videos up here. Check out my Ghostbusters review if that's the one up here. If not, search for that one. But I will see you when I see The Matrix, and we'll see if that's going to be movie of the year, because right now in the year 2021, Spider-Man No Way Home is the movie. And when you think about it, it's not that the villains didn't have a way home, it's that Peter didn't. Now with nobody else to, you know, check on or that, you know, cares about him, he's truly alone in an apartment by himself, studying to get his GED. Still broke. I just needed a minute. But I love you guys. See you in the next one. Other Yellow Hat guys out. Captain Sensation!